The best player on the team continues to miss practice, which begs the question, is he about to miss games that count? That's where we start in this episode of Locked On Patriots.
You are Locked On Patriots, your daily New England Patriots podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Patriots fans? I am your host, Nick Cattles, born and raised in New England, also host of the Everything Pats podcast, co-host of the Greg Bedard Patriots podcast with Nick Cattles, and a sports talk show host, veteran. On today's episode, I will tell you why the Pats cannot afford to follow the same plan as a team that went to a conference championship just last season. And we've got some important questions for this hyped 2025 draft class. But first, Christian Gonzalez remains MIA. We appreciate you joining the show, making us your first listen, and for being an everydayer. The Locked On Patriots podcast is a proud partner of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. We are creeping closer and closer to Christian Gonzalez missing week 1 for the Pats. I take you back about a month ago when Gonzalez went down with a hamstring injury. In that very moment, it was told to all of us via national insiders that Gonzalez was not going to miss a ton of time and that the Patriots didn't feel like Gonzalez's injury was going to put week 1 at risk. And we're not there yet. I want to be clear. We are not there yet, but we're getting closer and closer. Next week is game week. Gonzalez has not practiced in the last month. Now, I'm not sitting here trying to be a doctor. It would be nice to get that kind of money, but I'm not going to sit here and try to be a doctor and prescribe things and diagnose things and give you prognosis. No, that's not what I'm going to do. But I will tell you, if you Google, if you look this stuff up, if you do any research on hamstring strains, if you have any experience watching sports, if you play sports, you know a grade 1 hamstring strain is something that will keep you out 1 to 2 weeks, maybe at the most 3 weeks. A grade 2 hammy strain is 3 to 6 weeks. A grade 3 strain is considered severe. Once you hit that severe category, you got some issues. Once you get to that severe category, you're talking 6+ weeks. Now, we don't know what degree of strain Gonzalez has in that hammy, but we can try to figure it out. Deductive reasoning. Number 1, he's not back yet, which means it wasn't a grade 1. Number 2, he was not placed on IR, even with a designation to return, which would make me believe the Patriots don't feel like Gonzalez has a grade 3 strain, which means we fall into the second category. Now, unless the Patriots say, well, we can survive without Gonzalez for the first couple of weeks, and maybe at worst, he'll be out 6 weeks and he will miss the first game or the first 2 games, we still want to keep him on the 53-man and make sure that, he's ready. So just in case he can play week 1 or week 2, we have him there. If we put him on the IR, then, there's some games that we have to do. We got to shuffle some players, and we don't want to do that. But that seems unlikely. So my best guess, and frankly, it's only a guess because that's all we have. We don't have any inside reporting telling us exactly how bad this is. My guess is that we're dealing with a grade 2 hamstring strain, which would be 3 to 6 weeks, which means he could miss week 1. He could miss week 2. And as he continues to miss practice, it feels like it's more likely he will miss the Raiders game to kick this season off. Now, he's got to get back on the field. He's got to get back on the practice field by the beginning of next week, or we can pretty much write it down in Sharpie that he's out week 1. And really the question we have to be asking is not only when Christian Gonzalez will practice, it's how much of a ramp up will Gonzalez need? And I thought it was interesting. Mike Vrabel spoke to the media this week, and he was asked about Gonzalez. He was asked about guys trying to get back and get into conditioning to return to play. And Vrabel said the following, quote, confident the player's working hard. Let's say they recover from something they're working through. There is some conditioning involved. That's probably different for each guy. You can only ride the bike for so long. Now, of course, the stationary bike that Vrabel's talking about, sit side of practice on the bike, you're just cycling. You're watching practice. You're looking at the sun, and you're looking at the clouds. You're listening to the birds chirp. You're listening to the whistles. You're just cycling. But cycling is not football conditioning. And so Christian Gonzalez, according to many, he's been on that stationary bike, and he's been going pretty hard on that bike, but he hasn't been on the field. Vrabel continued to say, you get out here and run and get into actual football conditioning. So the coach is telling us, I don't care. I don't care how much a guy is on the bike. That doesn't mean he's on the precipice of returning. He's got to touch the practice field. And Gonzalez has not done that in a month. And you have to wonder how tough it is to simulate, 50-plus snaps in a football game. Like, how difficult is it to get Gonzalez on the practice field, get him ramped up enough where you feel like he can play every single solitary snap? Because that's going to be his responsibility. He's the best player on this roster. He's the most talented player on this roster. So you have to make sure. Now, of course, you could bring him back and not play him 100% of the snaps, which might be the way the Patriots handled this. And then you've got to see who is going to be replacing him when he's not out there. How does it impact the other guys? What is your defensive strategy when Gonzalez is out there versus not out there? But the biggest point here is that Gonzalez not only has to return to the practice field, he has to ramp up, have the type of conditioning that makes this coaching staff feel like they can trust him out there on Sunday against the Raiders. And so when you're a cornerback and you're dealing with this kind of strain, I just would have to imagine it's more difficult than some other positions. You might be able to deal with it better if you're in the trenches, so to speak, because you're not running up and down the field. You're not dealing with change of direction. But that's what Gonzalez is going to have to deal with. Change of direction, sticking with those wide receivers, getting downfield. And so it's going to be very interesting to see if Gonzalez returns next week. Does he play? And if he plays, how much does he play? And if he does play, does the coaching staff handle him differently than they might if he wasn't coming back from a hammy? And I'm not just talking about snap percentage. I'm also talking about how they utilize him. For example, Gonzalez comes back. Let's say hypothetically that Gonzalez returns to practice next week, and the staff says, we think he's good to go. We're going to play him in week 1. Training staff, the medical staff, they all say, yes, we think he's good to go. Do the Patriots go into that Raiders game and say to themselves, well, we have to provide help over the top to Gonzo because we feel like he might have some hesitancy, or just in case he's not the same guy, he's not fully trusting it just yet, let's make sure we have some help over the top. If Gonzalez is coming back to play against the Raiders, do the Patriots feel like they can put him on, let's say, Brock Bowers? And do they think, well, we might be able to get away with it a handful of times, but we don't want to put him on Brock Bowers full time. So maybe we kind of maneuver him around and, change the approach for that first week. It's going to be compelling stuff. And if he's not out there, then do you have Carlton Davis travel? Because that will be impacting everybody else. Davis clearly, according to the camp and the preseason, he clearly likes playing on one side. He's been playing, I think, the left side pretty much 100% of the time. So if he's playing the left side and Gonzalez is not back, you got Alex Austin out there. Alex Austin, do you just put him on the right side? Or do you have Davis travel with the best receiver on the opposing team because you don't quite trust Austin to do that? So it's a trickle-down effect. What I would say is we all got to be patient. I do not want Gonzalez rushing back if he doesn't feel right. If he feels 80%, you don't put him out there. But I do think we have to start at least entertaining the idea that he could miss at least a week because he hasn't been back in a month. And it might take him some time to just ramp up. All right, the Pats have to be careful about copying a conference contender's game plan. We'll tell you why next as we continue with today's episode of Locked On Patriots, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Hey, folks, are you still paying full price for gas? Stop leaving money behind. Get real cash back every time you fill up with the free Upside app. Simply download the free Upside app in the App Store or Google Play right now and start earning cash at the pump today. Use my limited time promo code TOUCHDOWN and get an extra 25 cents back per gallon on your first fill up. You can make up to $300 a year just from buying the gas you already needed. At first, I thought it was, too good to be true, but it's totally legit. Real people are getting paid just to make their daily commutes, and you can too. Plus, you can cash out anytime to your bank account, PayPal, or an e-gift card for Amazon and other brands. Don't let this offer drive on by. Download the free Upside app now using my limited time promo code TOUCHDOWN for a limited time 25 cent per gallon bonus. That's promo code TOUCHDOWN. Offers vary by user and location. Go to upside.com for terms and conditions. NFL season is back, and honestly, there's nothing better than being in the stadium surrounded by fans cheering on your team. But let's be honest, getting tickets could be a hassle. Between queues and login screens and prices jumping at checkout, it's frustrating. That's why I use Game Time, the app that gives the advantage back to fans. Game Time is fast, easy, and backed by the Game Time guarantee. You'll always get 100% authentic tickets delivered on time and at the best price. Plus, all fees are included, so the price you see is the price that you actually pay. You pull up Game Time, just a couple of taps, you see amazing deals. Talking about your favorite NFL games as low as $100. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Game Time today. Locked On wants to hear from you. We've put together a survey to learn more about our listeners and make your favorite podcasts even better. This is your chance to tell us what you like, what you don't, and answer questions about our advertising. Go to LockedOnPodcasts.com/survey to get started. Everyone who completes a survey will be entered for a chance to win one of 10 $100 Amazon gift cards. Again, that's LockedOnPodcasts.com/survey. You can also find the link in the show notes. Thanks for helping us out. A lot of people love, and I get it, a lot of people love comparing the Patriots to the Washington Commanders. When the question is asked, can the Patriots make a dramatic turnaround? Everybody points to the Commanders from 23 to 24 and what they did, getting to the NFC Championship game, a truly great story. You look at the turnover of the team roster. You look at the young quarterbacks. You look at a second-time head coach. You look at an experienced offensive coordinator. The two teams share all of those things. But inevitably, the most important question is whether or not either of these teams figure out a way to have sustained success. 1 year is great, but if Washington falls back to 8 or 9 wins this year, they're going to be looked at as a flash in the pan. And what's interesting about the Commanders is that they're an older team, like a really old team, if you look at history. So the average age of the Commanders' 53 players is 28.1 years old. Now, this has been tracked for years, the average ages of all NFL initial 53-man rosters since 2012, and the Commanders are the first team ever since 2012 to have an average age over 28. The previous oldest teams were the 23 Saints and the 18 Raiders, who both had an average age of 27.4. So when we compare Washington and New England, we have a lot of similarities. But we have to ask the question, how can the Patriots stay away from that type of roster? They don't want the oldest roster in the NFL by 2026. They don't want to get there. So here are 3 main points. The Patriots have to live by these 3 main things if they want to make sure that they don't age out quickly. Because that is a risk for Washington and Dan Quinn and Cliff Kingsbury and everybody else. And not Jaden Daniels. He should be fine as long as he stays healthy. But that team could age out. and age out within the next year or two. So here are the three main points the Patriots have to focus on as a franchise to make sure they don't get old quick. Draft and development is number one. It's obvious, but let's dive into some of the details. When I talk about drafting well, I'm talking about hitting on your early round picks. You can't waste a first round pick like Cole Strange. You can't waste a first round pick like N'Keal Harry. You just can't do it. You can't waste second round picks in Jalen Polk and Tyquan Thornton. That will kill you. And you also don't want to waste a bunch of third round picks. So not only do you have to draft well, but you've got to make sure that you are drafting well in those top 3 rounds. You have to do as much damage as humanly possible in rounds 1 through 3. Secondly, when you move on beyond the 1 through 3, you've got to find value picks. This is what Bill Belichick did during the best years. He was able to find the quote-unquote value. And that word drove people crazy, right? They got tired of it. Oh, will you stop with the Belichick value? But that's what he did. He found value and able to, draft somebody in the 4th, 5th, 6th round and find that value in that player. Because if you hit on a good portion of your rounds 1 through 3 picks, and then you find a couple of gems, 4th round through 7th round, you find some value guys. That's when you start to stockpile some depth, and that's what you need. And hey, the occasional UDFA steal or two also will help. If Efton Chisholm III becomes a legitimate NFL wide receiver and Elijah Ponder becomes a legitimate NFL defensive end, we will look back at those 2 UDFA signings and say, man, oh man, that helped the team so much. And when I talk about development, I'm talking about the entire staff. I'm talking about the training staff. I'm talking about the nutrition staff. I'm talking about the coordinators, the coaches, the head coach. And I feel like the Patriots have a really good staff to develop these young players. Here's point 2, roster management. You don't become the oldest team in the league if you handle your roster correctly. This will go back to, again, the good Bill Belichick years, when the old saying was, I'd rather get rid of a guy a year too early instead of a year too late. This is why. Because you don't want to have a bunch of 29, 30-year-olds. And I understand that, like, free agency, that's who the Patriots brought in, but you're very limited in free agency. And they had to just replenish this roster and get some talent. But you don't want to keep diving into, oh, we're going to bring that 30-year-old in, that 30-year-old in. We want to keep this guy until he's 33. You want to get ahead of it. Be a year too early instead of a year too late. Roster management. When you talk about premium positions, much like when I say you got to hit in the 1st to 3rd rounds, you also have to hit on your premium positions. You can't keep swinging and missing at left tackle, wide receiver 1, quarterback, defensive end. You can't keep swinging and missing. Those are the premier premium positions in the league. And you need guys who are talented enough that you feel comfortable that you don't have to go out and replace them at those premium positions. If Will Campbell is a good left tackle for the next decade, that is so crucial to the entire operation. So you've got to hit on those premium positions. You also have to manage the other players as best as you can. I'm talking about the depth chart. How many corners do you need in a given season? What if you have a 6th corner, but you think he could be really good in a year or two? You hold on to that guy, because if you hold on to that 6th cornerback, you're taking away from another position. Roster management, manipulation. Who do you keep on the practice squad? How many young guys on your practice squad that you think that you can develop into players that will be legitimate within the next year? So roster management's point 2. Point 3 is be aggressive. Be aggressive. Be aggressive. Trade for guys in their prime years. When it's time to pull the trigger, pull the trigger. Don't be afraid to acquire a big name if you think he helps you. Because if you're managing the rest of the roster, you shouldn't be afraid of somebody that's 27 years old. If they're in their prime years playing their best football, bring them on in. So trade for prime year guys. Be aggressive in extension talks with your youngest players. Get deals done. If you believe in Drake May by the end of 2026, get that extension done the very first day that you can get it done. Signed, sealed, delivered, move on to the next one. Don't waste any time. Christian Gonzalez, after this year, if you believe that he is the man, if you believe he's an all-pro, and I'm talking first-team all-pro, lockdown, elite corner, get his extension done. Don't waste any time. And when you walk into the draft weekend, be aggressive. Make some trades up the board if you feel like there's a truly special talent. So draft and develop, roster management, and being aggressive. Those three things should keep you away from aging out and hopefully will lead you to a sustained winning program. We've compiled some of the most critical questions this 2025 draft class will face. That's next as we continue with today's episode of Locked On Patriots, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. This episode is brought to you by Prize Picks, the daily fantasy platform that lets you turn your football predictions into real rewards. Preseason, it's over. College football, it is here. And whether you've got your eye on big-name quarterbacks or breakout running backs, Prize Picks makes it easy to get in the game. Check out the weekly flyer, right? For this weekend, Prize Picks is offering major max discounts. One of them, Dak Prescott. Dak Prescott's max discount is he's got to pass for over a half a yard. That's it. Take advantage of that. Prize Picks, it's simple to play. Just pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections. If you get your picks right, you could cash in and win up to 2,000 times your money. Download the Prize Picks app today. Use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after your first $5 play. Prize Picks. Remember it, Prize Picks. Run your game. I've got big expectations for this 2025 draft class, and I think most of you have some big-time expectations. But the excitement over this draft class is not just a local thing. It's not just a homer thing. Everybody is talking about the Patriots draft class. Everybody is pumping its tires. Brett Coleman, for example, who is the creator of All 32. He's also co-host of the Bootleg Football Podcast. He posted this week, rookies this year that looked awesome in the preseason, but didn't really get any publicity. Jacob Parrish, Gray Zabel, Woody Marks, Kelvin Banks, Jamari Caldwell. And then Coleman writes, basically any Patriot. I have been waiting and waiting and waiting to see a tweet like that. Basically any Patriot. Rookies this year that looked awesome in the preseason, basically any Patriot. Now we can move forward with Pro Football Focus. Pro Football Focus came out with a story recently, and the headline was one emerging player at every position this preseason. The Patriots didn't just have one guy on the list. They didn't have 2 guys on the list. They had 3 guys on the list, and there was only one player devoted to each position. At running back, of course, you had TreVeyon Henderson. On just 10 total touches, produced 7.6 yards per carry, 3 missed tackles, and a pair of touchdowns, including his kick return score on the first NFL touch. Efton Chisholm led the preseason in receptions, missed tackles forced, contested catches. He posted the second highest PFF receiving grade, by the way, in college football last season. And then you had at tackle, music to my ears, Will Campbell. Will Campbell. As PFF wrote, the first-year tackle is looking like a franchise cornerstone right out of the gate, standing as the only tackle so far this preseason, so after 2 games, to post an 80-plus PFF grade as both run blocker and pass protector. 3 guys, 3 of your rookies on the list from PFF's story of one emerging player at every position this preseason. So it's not just the New England media. It's not just me yapping into a microphone telling you that you should be excited about this rookie class. It's pretty much universal. But I do have some questions for this class, and I want to get ready for the season. We're just over 1 week away, and I think it's the perfect time to ask some of the bigger questions for this draft class. Let's start with the offensive line, Will Campbell, Jared Wilson. I'm not going to bring in Marcus Bryant because, yes, he's the top swing tackle option right now. But I want to pay attention to the guys who were drafted in the first 4 or 5 rounds. So let's start with Campbell and Wilson. The biggest question for me with Will Campbell isn't about the arm length and getting beat inside from time to time. My initial big question is, how much will Josh McDaniels help Campbell? Because if he helps Campbell a lot, that tells us Campbell has a lot to learn, and the trust just isn't there yet. As far as Jared Wilson, yes, he's trying to transition to a new position. He used to be a guard, then went to Georgia, and late in his Georgia career, switched to center. Can Wilson handle it, first of all? But also, does he have the best bookends, so to speak? He's got a rookie left tackle next to him. He's got Garrett Bradbury on his right side. Campbell on the left, Bradbury on the right. I have major concerns about Bradbury, and I hope that, if Bradbury is not good, I hope it doesn't trickle down to Wilson and impact his play. I also have to remind everybody, we need patience. We need patience when we look at these two young offensive linemen. If we expect them to be flawless right off the bat, we're going to be, I think, disappointed. If you think that they're going to both have clean sheets every week, get ready for disappointment. But it's not just our patience. The coaching staff has to be patient. They have to understand. I'm sure they do. And I'm compelled. I'm compelled by Doug Marrone's impact on this offensive line, especially with the young guys, because there are some analysts that will tell you, there are some pundits that will tell you, Doug Marrone's track record of developing young offensive linemen hasn't always been the best. Let's get to TreVeyon Henderson. I don't have a lot of questions about whether or not he can adapt to the. I'm not worried about that. My question about Henderson is usage. How much will he be used? How many touches will he get? Now, I think going into his rookie season especially, 10 to 12 touches a week feels right to me. At running back, 10 to 12 touches. I know some people might be disappointed by that. I know some people want to see him touch the ball 25 times. But his history at Ohio State tells us the more he plays, the more he wears down. So I think that 10 to 12 mark is perfect. I do wonder if you have him returning kicks, and we anticipate more kicks to be returned this year, does that eat into his touches, so to speak? We'll have to wait and see. How much does he play on first and second down? Because if you only have 10 to 12 touches, you might have to manage and balance that out. But I think Henderson's going to have an immediate impact. Let's go to the two receivers. Kyle Williams, Efton Chisholm. My biggest question for those two guys, are they going to get any snaps? Williams has Diggs in front of him. He has Pop Douglas in front of him. He has Kayshon Boutte. He's got Mac Hollins. How much will Kyle Williams actually play, especially in the first month and a half, 2 months of this season? And that's even a bigger question for Efton Chisholm, who has a number of guys who can play the slot position ahead of him. How much will he play, especially early in the season? Here's my question for Craig Woodson. Will he start? I think he's going to. I think Woodson is going to start alongside Jabril Peppers week 1 against the Raiders. If he doesn't, how is he handled? Does he play any slot corner, by the way? How much versatility? We've seen the Patriots coaching staff ask Woodson to do an awful lot during the preseason. Is that just to get him ingratiated with the system so he knows everything? Or is that going to be the questions that are asked of him to be on the field and do week 1? But I think Woodson is going to end up starting. Then you go to, a couple of other guys and Farmer and Ponder. Can they push? Can they push the guys ahead of them on the roster? Can Farmer push, Jeremiah Farms and Tonga? And Farmer might be ahead of Farms, by the way. Can he push Tonga if he is ahead of Farms? Elijah Ponder, UDFA. Can he push Keon White? Keon White was pushed out by Kayvon Chason. Can he be pushed further away by Elijah Ponder? And a really simple one to wrap up the rookie questions, and that is, can Andy Borregales make kicks? Can he make his kicks? Because Parker Romo was the better kicker in the preseason, but they stuck with Borregales. And he's got to make them look good. He's got to make kicks. He doesn't have to, make it from 65 every week, but he's got to be consistent. That wraps up this edition of Locked On Patriots. Thank you for making us your first listen and for being an everydayer. Reach out to me on Twitter at NickCRadio, and don't forget to throw a comment in on the YouTube channel. Hit that like button and subscribe. All of those things help us out tremendously. And college football fans, for your second listen, Locked On and Fire TV present College Football Kickoff, your ultimate college football weekly preview. I watched the first week. It was great. Drake Toll of Locked On Big 12 leads the conversation alongside two-time AP Coach of the Year Gary Patterson, former college star Jesse Holley, and Locked On's local experts. A college football preview only Locked On can do. Catch College Football Kickoff every Thursday throughout the season, only on Fire TV. Have a great weekend, and we will see you after the holiday.